ready? You nervous?
No.
You good?
What do you mean I'm nervous?
I'm actually just happy that you're here.
I'm nervous.
All right. Ready? Go. Do your thing.
Oh, yeah. You did it.
All right, cool. Well, welcome to the Dad Tribe podcast.
Oh, let's take that again.
Well, how you guys doing?
Good. Very good.
This is a really cool episode. We have my pops, Robert Perez, on the episode. I'm excited. He is a huge part of my life, a huge part of our family's life, and it's really cool that he is going to be joining us on the Dad Tribe podcast today. So you've met him a couple times, correct?
Yeah, I'm excited because I've only met you in person a couple times, but I've heard many stories about how cool you are. So please live up to all those stories about dadhood, and I'm excited always to learn from somebody who's been a dad longer than we have, because the people that we've talked to that have been a dad past toddlerhood, we've both taken away something super relatable, something gratifying, something that we can definitely apply as soon as we leave here. So I'm excited to learn from you.
Good.
So to stay consistent with the podcast, man,
You talk much, guy?
Words are tough today. To stay consistent with the podcast, this is Dad Tribe Podcast. My name is JC. I'm a father, entrepreneur, husband, and friend to John.
Yeah, and I'm John, fitness guy, dad guy, fun guy, and we are joined today by your dad guy.
My dad guy.
So
Yes.
You want to give us a breakdown real quick of who you are, what you do, and what makes you awesome?
Wow. I don't know if I could fill that in, but my name is Robert Perez, and like JC said, I'm his dad. And basically, what I do, I've done. I think you're my son. I think you're my son. Been in healthcare sales for the last 35 years, and I traveled a ton in my life, and unfortunately enough, I'm not traveling anymore. I'm still in healthcare sales, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed everything that, I'm passionate about healthcare, so that's one of the things that I think with jobs, it doesn't matter how much you get paid, it's got to be gratifying. It's got to be something that you believe in. So for me, it's been a fortunate career. So I'm towards the end of my career, and I've really, every aspect of it I've enjoyed. So
Nice.
Yeah.
So my first question off the bat,
Wow,
is going to be something that I've always wanted to hear. Obviously, you're my dad, and we talk a lot about everything. But what makes you so passionate about being a father? Like, where does that come from? Why are you so passionate about it? Because you're an incredible father. So what makes you so passionate about doing so?
Well, I appreciate your opinion on incredible father.
It's a fact.
Being a father is not something that you have a manual and you say, well, this is how it's going to be. Once you have a child, you understand what the responsibility is. And for me, having that responsibility is the most important thing, is to be able to nurture that child, be able to see them grow, educate them the proper way, show them the right way of doing things. And it also is showing them the things that you are not so good at and what not to do. Because I never have wanted my kids to do exactly what I've done. I've just wanted to show them the right things, whether it's whatever it is, and for me, the passion has come in where, it started from your birth, and then your sisters and your
So you can
brothers.
confirm you were there for my birth.
I was.
Okay.
I was.
Is this a thing that we're not sure of?
I was there.
I saw you
It's a joke. It's a joke.
I saw you being born. But it just, and obviously not everybody has it. Some people have it more. Some people have it less. For me, that's been, it's been something that it's been the most gratifying thing in the world, because you get to see, and I don't want to say you have ownership of the child, but you basically are responsible for that child. And if you have any sense of responsibility, you understand that is going to be the person that is going to look up to you for a long, long time. Sometimes it tapers off because obviously when kids get into their teen years, they drift away a little bit and they start looking at their friends and listening to their friends, and you become old. But then it comes back around where you become a friend of your child. You're not just the adult where you got to give them orders and all that. And the funny thing is, people don't realize that I talk to people that are younger than I am, and their kids are younger. They're experiencing now where their kids are 10, 11, 12, where they still listen to them. But I tell them all the time, you're going to start listening at some point to your kids. And it's the coolest thing, because sometimes, you don't realize that, but you listen to your kids. And, if you have an open mind about it, you're okay with it. There's some people that don't, and I'm always the authoritative figure. No, I don't. I mean, we're not. I have a friendship with my children. I listen to them, and it's just, for me, going back to your initial question, passion has been something that's the number one topic in my life. My children, my family, really. I mean, family is everything, because at the end of the day, it's the backbone of what who you are and what you are. And not everything is hunky-dory all the time, because we've had, ups and downs in the family. We've had, things that have been great, experienced a lot of good things and experienced a lot of bad things. But I think in the life is cyclical. You got to look at life always, that the bad times will pass. And I think it was
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
We talked
No,
about
not
that.
Tom Cruise.
Tom
Hanks.
Sorry.
Tom
I was going to
Hanks
say,
said,
that's your quote. How
Yeah.
are you going to mess
The other
with that?
Tom
Tom.
Hanks said,
Sorry.
"This
The
too
other
shall
Tom.
pass."
Oh, Tom Cruise might have something to say about that.
Yeah.
The other Tom.
The other Tom. So, anyways, it's being a father is the responsibility of a lifetime. And when I say lifetime, it is a lifetime, because you got your kids, or you have your son, your wife, your business. You're basically on your own, but you're still my responsibility, in my eyes, and in our, in a parent's eyes, and not all parents, but in my eyes, it is, because it's, at the end of the day, you feel like you want to always be there for them. I will make a note, a side note. One of the most challenging things about being a parent is having your kids grow up. And you say, well, you guys that have young kids, I can't wait till they grow up, because you want to see them grow up, whatever.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My daughter
definitely doesn't say
my
that.
daughter is going to turn 2 next week, and every day, every single day right now, my wife and I look at each other and we go, where did our baby go?
Right.
Where did our
Right.
whatever? When did she learn that word?
Right.
How does she do that already?
Right.
So and before we move on, one, I want to confirm that's your dad. He just answered that question for 10 minutes, and didn't do too many ums at all. So that's all you. 2, one thing you said in there that I agree with, but also I think that I use a different word for is you're responsible for your kid. I think that we are the ultimate influencer of our child, because
100%.
The beginning of their life is so much about us, right? It's they look to us for answers. They look to us for questions. They look to us when they're scared. They look to us when they're happy. They look to us all the time. We're the closest person to them. And so we have the power of influence. And we've talked about the power of the word influencer and how that's gotten kind of bastardized in today's society with social media.
Right.
But that's what we are, as well as we're responsible for their well-being and teaching them and whatnot. But I think that all of that could be encompassed under being the influencer, the prime influencer on who they become, who they have the power to be, who they're encouraged or discouraged to be like. And so I thought that was a really powerful thing that I just wanted to make sure we stuck a pin in that, because it you had such a great answer and you glossed over so many things, but being the ultimate influencer of your kid has so much potential to shape their outcome if you take it seriously.
Yeah, and you nailed it. And what's funny is you have I have 3 children of my own. I have 5 in total, with my wife's 2 daughters. My 3 children were brought up pretty much until their adulthood in the same place. They are all heavily influenced by me in what a family looks like, standards, expectations, and all that. None of them have same personalities. None of them act the same, do the same things. So they're not clones.
No.
They're not robots.
Right.
It's just the influence that you have over them, the positive or negative influence. Okay, so it's not like you want your kids. I want you to do exactly what. No. I want to influence you in a positive way, but I want you to be your own person. I mean, JC couldn't be farther from how his brother is. Okay, or his sister. But I'm looking at 2 boys, and yet they're very similar in how they view family, in how they care about their children. Well, Danny doesn't have any children, but how he treat people, how you treat people, how you treat adults. Yeah. One of the proudest things that I am of with my children, especially the boys, is I remember when they were growing up. They were 8, 9, 10 years old. We'd walk into a restaurant and they'd hold the door for somebody behind us. You don't see that. And none of them were kids. I mean, they all partied, went out. They were normal kids. It was just the fact of that's how you want them to grow up. Everybody's different. Everybody has their different standards, and everybody has differences in what is important to them. But to me, what you just said is the influence.
Yeah, and creating those values is what that is. You created a system of values in which they can live as themselves. Right. How you treat other people, how you deem family, the importance, the priorities, all of that stuff. And we've talked about that a little bit here on the podcast. We tried to record an episode specifically on core values, and then that didn't make it. We ran out of battery, so that's why we have a system now to make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah. So what about his answers? Like, what's resonating with you? I'm interested because I'm taking this as a complete third party, right? Right. And you're taking this as father-son. This is a completely different perspective.
POV. I lived this. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you hearing that's like really ringing your bell?
Well, I got 2 things. One of them is he talks about the influence, and he talks about how we're different people. Me and my brother and my sister. How we're different people, but at the core we're very similar. And I think to an extent that is both of you guys, you and Mom, how you guys pushed our individualism growing up. Like, I remember you used to always say, I don't give a shit what you do. Like, I don't care if you play piano, I don't care what you do, just try to be the best at that possible. Like, work your ass off, whatever. And I think that's you didn't put us in a bubble of like, you need to be this. It was I don't think you knew it at the time, but you were pushing our individualism, like who we are out, but also instilling at the same time, like, you got to work your ass off. If not, like, don't even try to play piano because you're not gonna do it. And I think instilling that framework, what is the core of what you're talking about, and pushing that individualism, which I don't think you really knew at the time that you were doing, but you guys did. You guys really, like, look at you, and proof is in the pudding. Like, Danny, Janessa, and I, although at the core are very similar, and again, like what he says, and how we treat family, how we family is literally our number one. Janessa married somebody that is very similar to that comes from a very similar background. Roby's number one is family. Like, his family is very close, incredibly close. They're together every single day at the house. Like, they're very close, and we're like that as well.
All 3 of you.
All 3 of us. That's what I'm saying. But I'm saying Janessa got married to somebody like that. Alex is like that as well, Danny's girlfriend. So I think to the core, what we were built was incredibly important, and I love that you brought that up. The second thing that I'm going to say is I'm going to actually fact check you on one. What?
We're on a podcast. We know you're going to say stuff. The second thing I'm going to say, I'm going to let you know right now. I'm going to say it.
The second thing that I'm going to say on this podcast that we're doing right now is I'm going to fact check you a little bit. So you said something about that you were our friend growing up. I don't agree with that. And I think one of the things that you did very well was always let us know that you were there. You were always supportive. You were always physically there, emotionally there, etc. Okay, you were always supporting in us in anything that we did, but there was always a line growing up that was very clear, and you didn't. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the way that you were as a father is he never said that. It was never something said. It was always understood.
Right.
Like, you take it up to here, but you never fuck around. Don't fuck around. You know what I mean? Like, don't be disrespectful about.
I see that. Fuck around, find out.
Yeah, fuck around, find
out. We never got here.
Well,
we pushed it to about
which,
7.
by the way, I was 18 years old. I was still living at the house. I was a freshman, and this is the fuck around, find out. I was a freshman at FIU, and I had just gotten shoulder surgery. Mind you, I'm 18 years old, so nobody go after my father for this. I was 18. I was a grown ass man, and we were in between the hallway, his master bedroom, and the rest of the house. And I don't know what the fuck I said. I know I was very disrespectful. I was trying to go out that night. He's like, "You're not going to go out. You can't drive, whatever." I had just gotten surgery that morning. He's like, "You're not going out. I don't care. You're under my fucking house. You're not going out."
Well, he wanted to go, and I remember the day. He wanted to go to drive to the beach, the South Beach at night. And I said, "That's not a good idea."
He's not a good idea, whatever. So I raised my voice and I got stupid with him. Again, 18
You want
years
to say
old.
what you said, because I remember it.
Oh, I want you to say it.
Hold on. So I told him no, and he was in the room getting dressed, standing in the mirror, because he stood in the mirror for about half an hour.
Right, 18 years old.
Yeah, of course. Standing in the mirror, whatever. And then as he's walking, and parents have this keen sense of hearing, where you hear everything that they say. And he said something to the effect that, "Well, you probably did it when you were young." And that just turned up the notch a little bit. And then he ended up coming by me and just he didn't stare me down, but he just said something else.
I said something stupid for sure.
And we ended up.
Long story short, I went through a closet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We ended up in the closet. His mom in the background screaming, "Hey, don't hurt him!" Or this, I don't remember exactly what it was, but we ended up in the closet. So he ended up going to his room and saying,
"Shut my mouth and go to my room."
You know where you're going? You're not going anywhere. So,
but again, 18 years old, I'm a grown ass man. That was obviously never done earlier in my life. But to my point is, there was a very fine line, or a very distinguished line between friend and anything over that. And I think growing up, the reason why we became your friend after the fact, I think, was because of that. It was because of who you were, and you didn't force that. Like, I remember vividly, like going into high school, it was that. Then I got into college, and by default, like, you go out with your friends. I'm in D1, like, you kind of lose that, and then it comes, like you said, it comes right back around. Like, right after college, it was like right back, and then that was where the friendship started to build. That is where, like, yes, always father, always respect. But that's where the friendship started to build. Was, okay, now I'm an adult. Like, Pops, help me out. Like, what the fuck do I do? Like, and there's that bond and friendship that starts building there. And yeah. So I just wanted to fact check you, because you were very good at the whole friend thing growing up. We weren't your friend. Right. And you weren't our friend. But we didn't lack anything.
And here's one of the things that about parenthood. I always say, you don't impose respect. Because you can impose respect by fear. You don't impose respect, in my philosophy. You earn it. And I tried to earn my kids' respect by showing them love, showing them caring, showing them that I was a provider for them, showing them all sorts of things. And by no means, and JC is way too complimenting on his take, but I made a ton of mistakes. We made a ton of mistakes, and if you look back at things, like, again, I always say this: there's not a manual. Okay, looking back at things, would I have done certain things in a little bit less of a passionate way? Absolutely. Okay, only because even though the outcome was great, but I probably would have done the approach differently. And if you have multiple children, you'll realize that your first is not exactly how you bring up your third or fourth or second. It's different because you've already learned. I mean, it's a learning process. Part of all this is a learning process. You know, I'm sure your first podcast is totally different to what it is now.
100%.
Okay, so, and it's the same thing. It's just no different. I mean, you know, bringing up children is just like, okay, we were winging it. We were young. You know, we had family influence and help us and all that. My mom, my mother-in-law, you know, my all surrounding family was there. But at the end of the day, it's you and your wife, you know, and that's who counts.
So, all right. So you already said what is the most difficult part about being a father. What's your favorite part?
Man, the favorite part, and it's probably been more visible to me, is seeing how my kids are now, and how they've taken on their own personalities and their roles in life, with their ups and downs in life, because everybody's got their things, but that is by far the most. I mean, every time I think of how each one is doing in life, and I'm not saying in the business aspect, because you could be a successful business person and be miserable as a human being.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I know many people that are like that in life, and it doesn't mean that you can't have a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody has a day where they go, okay, you know what? Today's not a good day. Whether you're feeling down, depressed, whatever it is, okay. But seeing how my kids are and how they view life and how they enjoy their lives, that is absolutely the number one thing.
And given that I'm your favorite child, you really love enjoying my life.
Well,
Notice how I sat back.
Let me put a side note. Before I had you, actually no. Before you got into high school and you started partying and doing things, I had hair.
Yeah.
Okay, so just making it.
Man, I'm not going to get to use that excuse. Mine's already said sayonara over here.
She must be a terrible dude right now. She must be in that stage.
She is going into that. Everything is a big reaction right now. Everything is my favorite. So we're recording this in August, the end of August. Right now, she has just learned how to go, "Aww," and that's the new thing. So when we tell her no, if it's not throw a whole tantrum, it's "Aww," and so like I think that either she's seen that enough on like Sesame Street, or like my wife and I have like jokingly done that enough to each other over the top that now she's just imitating us, and like every time she does it, I have to hold back laughing because I know that's just going to reinforce that activity. But it's so dang funny. Just it's so funny.
One of the things that I say this to people at my work that have younger kids. I say this to you guys, and I say this to anybody that listens. The one thing that I would tell every parent that have young kids is enjoy them in every step of the way, and spend as much time. Obviously, you have work, you have things to do. A lot of times you get busy. But understand that those moments are gone so fast, and you can't get that back.
No.
You cannot get that back. They grow. I see my grandkids, that they're, they grow up, and you sometimes, with, like, for example, with Vienna, my daughter's daughter, Brady. We don't see them all the time. So when we see them, we go, oh my God. And it could be 2 weeks that have passed by. And it's incredible how fast it goes by. I like to, say quotes, but I read it. Warren Buffett, one of my favorite guys, always, it stuck to my head what he said. I'm worth $190 billion. I could buy anything. I can't buy time.
Yep.
That's so impressive.
Yeah.
You think about that. I mean, he could literally buy anything he wants. He opens up his eyes and buys anything. He can't buy time.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. And time goes by, and you reflect on it, and you go, I wish I would have done this.
Right.
And you know, and I think back and sometimes we miss out on those things.
Yeah.
You know?
So as much as we villainize social media and whatnot, there was a post that I saw, it was either last week or the week before. It was like, you only get 18 summers. You only get 18 summers with them as a kid.
That's a scary thought. You
right?
think about that.
So like, think about it. He's already 3. You're 3 down. You only got 15. I got 16.
Yeah.
So like, that's a number that you can conceptualize in your brain, right? It's not 18 years.
Right. Until you put it into that perspective, you don't understand it and you don't realize it.
Yeah.
You know, and you go, and I hadn't heard that before, but obviously 18 summers.
Right. It's so simple, and it's easy for us as humans to understand that because time is so hard for us to conceptualize. Like a year. Remember when you were 5 or 6 years old? A year felt massive. Like, oh, Christmas doesn't come for a whole nother year. Well, yeah, because up to that point, a year had been a quarter of your lifespan. Now we're 35 plus. We won't talk about how old we actually are, and so it's 135 plus of our lifespan. So a year is like
year gets quicker.
Every year gets faster, and there's a reason for it. It's because it's less and less of our lifespan over time. So we think, this is going fast. They think it's going so slow, but still, either way, we only get a finite amount of those because time doesn't stop moving.
No, it doesn't. And to that point, you guys remember when you were 13, 14 years old and you thought, can't wait till I'm 18, and it never got there.
No.
Never got there. Well, I'm at the age where I'm going, time needs to stop. Slow down a little bit because you're the clock is ticking and you get to that point. You go, okay, that's a scary thought where I'm at. Enjoyable, and you got to enjoy every facet of your life. But it's true. I mean, that's one of the things that I think that everybody in all walks of life need to do is understand that we only have a limited amount of time, and enjoy that time and enjoy it and make it be a positive thing to somebody. So
Agreed. On that note, I have something that I wanted to bring up today. So Abu was very close to both of us. Abu was very close to you. It was
my dad.
Yeah, well,
I was going to ask who Abu was.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. My grandfather, his father, he passed away from cancer very, very quickly. It was 6 months, 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah, something like that. Took him real quick. How was your relationship with him and his relationship with us? How did that affect how you are a grandfather today? Because there's a lot of routes that we can go with Abu, but I want to go a route of on topic for the
how I am as a grandfather,
as a father and a grandfather, like good and bad. What are the things that you learned from him, good and bad? Because I know there was bad, but that you learned from him that has made you a better father and has made you in turn a better grandfather. Because sitting here today, I know those things of what you have given me that has made me a very good father, or in my perception, a good father. And there's things that I can look back on. I'm like, I'd probably do a little bit differently. But majority is things that you positively gave me for me to be a good father. What are those things? And again, I know that there's not so great things, but what was that impact for Abu to you, like to you, and how has that made you a better father and in turn a better grandfather?
Well, in terms of your grandfather, and I certainly think that he was great with you guys. That he was great with you guys the time that he spent with you. I don't think my dad influenced me a lot as being a grandfather. How he influenced me as a father. Okay, and I say that, and it's not a slight on him. It's just that his life got complicated older on because my father got divorced from my mom. He ended up having another family and 2 children with that family. And when he was supposed to be a grandfather, he was a father. He was being a father. Understood? That's just what his life was. So I think, if anything, I was a little bit bitter at him at not being able to spend more time with you guys. Now, having said that, the time that he spent with you guys, it was classic. It was always fun. It was always good. He was such a good influence in that aspect. But I don't think he really influenced my grandfather. You know what I view as a grandfather, because again, a lot of times that you were involved in sports and he couldn't attend because he was with his children or whatever. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do. As a father, and it's funny. One of the things my dad used to always tell me is the balance of life. You got to weigh out the good that someone does with the bad that someone does. And by far, he influenced us, and it was by far more good than bad. Unfortunately, the bad was, my dad had he had a drinking problem, and drank a lot. And, I don't think it wasn't a drinking problem where he came home and beat my mom, but he had a drinking problem, and that comes in all types of facets, and it affects you negatively. And also, he was a womanizer. So I mean,
woman problem.
Yeah, he had a woman problem. So, which which affected his life with my mom. Did he treat us bad? Absolutely not. The problem is that I would also view my mom in a state where my mom wasn't. She was sad. She was hurt by it. So it kind of, there was a period in my life where I became a little bit bitter with him to what he did and how he did it. I worked with my dad all my life, because the first probably 10 years of my life I worked with him in his business. We worked together, and there were certain things that he influenced me on in business, and other things we were totally different. My dad was very disorganized in business. I'm very organized as far as my stuff, but yeah, it was a bad period, because I was growing up, I was understanding who I was, and I could have taken that path that my dad took, because it's easy. I mean, your dad's your influence. I viewed my dad as, the Savior God. I mean, like you all do.
Superhero.
And at the end of the day, when you get older, you look at your dad and you go, "Oh my God, you're not 6'4", 245 pounds, and chiseled. You're a human being."
Yeah.
And that's how the reality is. I viewed him as a, almighty. Had an amazing, spectacular personality. Very charming, very charismatic. But there was that side of me that always held that inside of me, until I became a parent. And then when I became a parent, I said, okay, it's my time to parent, and I left it behind. But it was it and that go back to our original conversation. That's how influential your parents, good or bad, can be in your life. Doesn't mean that you're going to take their same path, but it's an influence. And
you get to see how one person did it, and then decide which path are you going to take. Where he went left, you went right.
Right, exactly. And again, I say there's a lot of things that my dad is far better than I've been, and I also say I think that I took my own path. One of the reasons, or the most important reason why I took that path, was because I didn't want to put that. I didn't want that negativity for my kids. I didn't want to put that hurt on my kids. I didn't want to put that, cloud over my kids, and have them feel like I felt, where there was nights where he would come home late, and I knew, kind of work, because my dad, the other thing was we were so close that I knew pretty much everything that he did, and where he did it, and what he did, and who he did it with. So coming home, there's nights where I would stay up until he got home, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's not something that I wanted to put my kid to, and that is, to me, the probably what also led to me being passionate about giving a positive influence. We're not perfect. We're absolutely not perfect. I've committed a lot of things that I've done wrong, and I should have done it in a different fashion. But my most important thing is the influence that I give my kids and what I've shown them. So, going back to what drives you, well, that's part of what's driven me as a parent. My relationship with my father, and how it. I'm both on the positive and negative side, because you know how Abu was. I mean, Abu was. It was always, he was always available for family. That's the one thing that I can tell you. I mean, I had times where I was out of town, pick up the phone, and I say, hey, the kids need something or whatever. I'm there. So, in that aspect, and that's why I say my dad's philosophy was always the balance of life. You got to look at the positives, you got to look at the negatives, and judge a person by that.
Which, ironically enough, his influence on you as a father was very balanced in the good and the bad. The family part of things is where you get your foundation of family first, etc. Because he was like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that drove you and that still drive you that were negatives on how he handled things or handled his life, which is interesting.
Yeah, one thing I want to commend you on is the power of reflection. Like, to be able to look back and say that you've made mistakes and you would do things differently. If those situations ever came up, you are instantly going to know which way you're going to go about it. And that's part of life. Like, people get hung up on the mistakes they make or the errors that get called out on them, or, and I would say it's not harder, but it's more obvious because people do it in the light of social media. More people can see your mistakes, especially if you're trying to make a personal brand or something on the internet. Nowadays, trying to be a business person, you almost have to do that. And if you screw up or fail or whatever, anybody who happens to click on that button to follow you also sees it.
Absolutely.
And so the mistakes feel magnified now in this era, but the way that you feel, the way that you can reflect on it hasn't changed as a person, as a human. To be able to internalize it, learn from it, and then move forward, and then be better next time. And I think that's a huge thing in all of life, not just business, not just fatherhood, not just whatever, but even like we talked about it in the gym. Like, you come in and some days you don't have it, and you feel like, oh, I'm sliding backwards, I'm doing blah blah blah. I can't lift the 100 pounds I lifted last week. But then you're like, you know what? I didn't sleep great, so I need to fix my sleep. Let's fix my sleep and see if that does something. Same thing in business. Oh, I didn't look at this metric before I made that decision. Next time I'm going to look at this metric before I make that same decision. So I just want to commend you on the power of reflection and making sure that you know that we heard that you are a growing human and you're doing a good job.
I appreciate that. And one of the things that I always live by is you own your decisions.
Absolutely.
Everything everything has a consequence, and you can't blame it on anybody else. Where I am in my life is solely because of me, good and bad, solely because of me. And I don't blame it on anybody else. And I think in this generation, and I don't want to,
generalize it too much.
Yeah. Many people do my dad was a smoker, or my dad did this. Yeah, it could influence you, but you got to make your own decisions.
Yeah.
And it's on you to make that decision, because, at the end of the day, when you go lay down, you're the only one who made that decision. If you got in your car and you drove drunk, nobody pushed you to do that. It's on you. Or if you did something wrong, it's on you. So, and I think we need to, men and women, but more men, need to own up to saying, yeah, I'm responsible for that, and unfortunately, we just, right now, that doesn't happen. So, I mean, that's a pet peeve of mine, that a lot of times we give too many excuses of why we did certain things, and it was somebody else's fault. So
growing up, you used to have that phrase, excuses are for losers.
Excuses are for losers. That still sticks to me, and that's the truth.
No worries.
So,
all right, I got another hard-hitting question. You ready?
Shoot.
I feel like this is more of an interview style today, but
Well, I know, and you're just coming with all the hard-hitting ones, as you're calling them.
No, the most of it has been fun and awesome, but this we'll get fun after this. I promise you. And I sent you the list. So.
Yeah, it's all been fun.
It's all good fun.
So I am intrigued as to and not to dive too deep into it because obviously there's too much to go into, but your divorce with mom, the impact on you, and how has that made you? And this is the angle I want to take on it. How has that made you a better person? Not the divorce, but just your growth, right? And how has that made you a better person? Whatever post that you went through to be a husband to Maggie and a better husband to Maggie.
Well, that certainly is not a good, part of my life. And I'll kind of give you the example of obviously it's a failure, okay? And I would say, think about this: if you played baseball, if you went 0 for 4 in a game and you struck out 4 times, you'd probably go back to the batting cage and work on getting better. Okay, that's how you feel when you go through a divorce. Because at the end of the day, and both Maggie and myself have gone through divorces, and we've talked about it. However, whatever it is, I mean, whatever the divorce is, and there's no perfect divorce, because at the end of the day, divorce is, it's two people that were married and they're going their separate ways. So there's something obviously wrong, whether it's out of love, cheating, whatever it is. But it's a failure. Okay, it's a failure, and it's something it takes you a while to overcome that. It takes you a while to overcome that because you say, why did I fail? What did I do to make it fail? How much of it wasn't my fault? At the same time, you have all the life things that are going on, because a lot of times when you get a divorce, a lot of times, not all the time, but when you get a divorce, a lot of times you have financial difficulties, which was my case. I mean, I was in a tough predicament. My kids were at the critical time of their life. I think Danny was 14 years old, so it was a critical time.
A little bit younger, because I was 20, 21.
Right.
So Danny,
it absolutely rocks your, as strong as you think you are, it rocks your boat. I mean, absolutely. It knocks you on your ass, and it makes you, it humbles you in ways that you can't imagine, because, we are creatures of habit. And a lot of times, even marriages that are not perfect, that are just going by, and they're just moving along, they're doing it because it's a habit, because it's what it is. But when that falls apart, moving to a different location, not having not seeing, which was the biggest influence, or the biggest thing, not seeing your kids all the time. Or seeing them all the time. I saw them all the time, but they weren't living with me. So all those things are definitely, big things that occur in your life, and it scars you. It scars you for life, because you again, I hate being a very competitive human being, and you're very similar to that. I hate to lose at anything.
And that's what it felt like.
And of course,
yeah,
of course, if you think
and you go through. So I've read or heard or seen something that, like, a divorce is the ultimate. It's the ultimate breakup, but it's a grieving process you have to go through, and I think the way that you described it as an extremely humbling experience is exactly right, because you were living life one way, and there's this abrupt turn to live life a completely different way, to see things from a different light, and then we go back to choosing how you respond to that thing, which I believe is what you're getting to. But instead of just reacting or throwing in the towel or whatever, you being the competitive person that you were, you went back to the batting cage.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And my life was 24/7 with my kids, even though I traveled a lot, but it was 24/7 with my kids, whether it was baseball with the boys or it was dancing with Janessa. So that's what it was, and all of a sudden that just completely changed. So yeah, it absolutely scarred you. Having said that, you got two ways to go. You either, say, okay, this sucks, and woe is me, or you say, here's a chance to get better as a person.
Yeah.
As a person, it doesn't affect my fatherhood, but as a person, and that was my my goal. I said I need to get better as a person because I don't want this to happen to me again, and obviously, when you have a relationship, it takes two to tango. So you whether it's 10% or 50% or 100%, you're responsible for something there, and how you handle certain things and how you did things with your partner. It wears on you, and added to that, like I said, usually you have a financial difficulty, or something else, and it was the case. So thankfully, this too shall pass, and that's what happens. It was a short period of my life where that went. I went through that, and I ended up, getting together with Maggie. And your question was what?
How has it made you a better person, and how has it made you a better husband to Maggie?
Well, without a doubt, a better person, yes, and a better husband, 100%. Because I'm a different person in the aspect of, even if I had never been married, I think getting married, and nobody does that. Well, very few people do, but if you're married at 20, you're going to be a certain husband. Mm-hmm. If you've never been married and you get married at 40, you're going to be a totally different husband.
Yeah. You're just a different person.
You're a different person.
Yeah, we talked about the ages in which our kids, we imagine they're going to reinvent themselves, right? And what we've gone through. And so you're exactly right. 20-year-old you is not 40-year-old you, is not 50-year-old you, is not 60-year-old you.
Even if you've never been married.
Even if you've never been in a relationship.
Right. Right. So how you view things at your, when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, and you're different. And we ended up getting married. I think I was 46, 47. We had gotten together a couple of years before. Time could be a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, you're a better listener. You're a better partner. You're better just overall. Yeah. Aside from the fact of two things, the other thing is you don't have kids, small kids, that are influencing you, because at the end of the day, you look at it and you go, you can walk in your door, and you go to your house and your wife's there and she's been dealing with your daughter, and you say, "Hey, sweetheart, how are you?" And she, rips your head off because she's been dealing with your child all day. You got to give her a little bit of slack. Mm-hmm. So I think that influences a lot. So we were both, mature. We were both coming off divorces. We had both adult children. And in fairness, I mean, she's, and you've dealt with her and how you feel about her. She was a star. She was a star because she understood what I brought to the table. I understand what she brought to the table, and she understood that there were three things that were the most important three things in my life.
JC.
Can we edit that?
No, I'm absolutely clipping that and putting it out there for everyone to see just how conceited JC is.
So it was also the absolute right person, because she understood that. And I don't wish this upon anybody, but if you do, if that's the route that life takes you, to find a person that aligns with your values, that aligns with your what you believe in, and that you align with them. That's extremely important, and that you can become a family is the most important thing, because my fear, and I could have been alone the rest of my life, but my fear was always, how are we going to, because when we started dating, obviously everything's great at the beginning, and it's always been great. But how do you incorporate two different sets of kids? How do you incorporate them into a family and make it one unit? And I think it's been probably 20% me and 80% her that has been that influence, because she has made it easy for my kids, my children, to be able to accept her into their lives and make her a part of our lives.
That's awesome.
So much that she's also incorporated. I when I say incorporated, but she's also been open to being able, not being a negative influence or negatively towards my ex, which is at the end of the day the mother of my children, and she knows that, and she's been. I don't think there's a person in the world that would have been the way she's been with you guys or with me. So, star next to her name.
So you mentioned if someone were to ever go through this, that they should find someone who aligns with their values, and I want to push back on that just a little bit. I think that there's some self-work that needs to be done first that you kind of alluded to.
Right.
But so I'm curious as to what advice would you give someone? So say someone mid-40s that just got divorced, they're out of a 15 to 20 year relationship. What do they need to do before getting into the next relationship, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's like everything else. You got to look at if you have an exam and you missed out on 15 answers, understand why you did that. What were you missing? What did you do wrong? Because, like I said, at the end of the day, you could have been a good husband and you still did 20% wrong.
Right.
Okay. And change yourself. Look at yourself. Analyze what you did, because you're going to have to be a better person for your next relationship. If you have a next relationship, so you're going to have to be a better person. Aside from the fact you're going to have to be also open-minded to the fact that you might have a relationship, you might get into, especially if you're in your mid-40s, the person you're going to be together with, or having a relationship with, probably has a family also, probably has children. So that is also going to be important in your life. So I think my advice would be, take a moment to reflect what you've done good, what you've done bad, how you can get better as a person, and how you can get better as being a partner. Okay, and that's one of the things that I still do parenting with my kids. Is I always want them to be a better partner.
Yeah, I encourage. So when I speak to my clients, I try to take these gym learnings and apply it to real life. And so when I was a CrossFit coach, there's 10 metrics that CrossFit tests, right? There's 10 modalities, and I was like, I want you to take all 10 of these, and I want you to rank yourself 1 to 10. 10 being you're awesome at it, 1 being you're the worst at it, right? And they go through and they've got like 7 8s and a 9, and they've got a couple 1s and 2s. I'm like, oh, okay, why are those 1s and 2s? Well, I've never really done it before. I'm really bad at it. Or I'm not strong enough. Cool. That's where I want you to focus. And they're like, oh, and then that gets better, and then everything gets better, right? That as an athlete, they improve. Once they've done that and they've seen that work, they're like, okay, cool. Outside of here, what are you bad at? Are you bad at nutrition? Are you bad at sleep? Are you bad at managing relationships, handling your stress? Cool. We're going to lean into that next. And then try to keep building those things until it's like, now they're the type of person that does all these things to make them a better human.
You're all connected.
Yeah, they're all connected.
You're all connected.
But starting with something that's so much easier to understand, like, I can lift more weight now. Something that's binary almost, like, oh, I did this and now I got that. It's like, okay, now let's take it to the more abstract, to your emotions, your feelings, your reactions, your responses, and trying to build that out. So I think that's great advice. I know that JC would agree, and we talked a lot about the ability to reflect and assess and then take that and respond appropriately instead of just reacting or lashing out or having a negative reinforced mindset on whatever challenge you're going through.
Right. And you said something about your CrossFit coach. I will tell you something. We talked about all the positive, and obviously that's the majority of the stuff. I will tell you something. If there is something that I have a regret as being a father of fatherhood, is what a bad influence I was. Drumroll.
And are eating.
On what a bad influence I was, and I gave to my kids on eating.
Why?
Because I never learned it.
Okay.
Because I came from the Latin family. If you're heavy and robust, you're healthy. I mean, my mom would probably look at you and say,
"You need to eat."
¿Qué le pasa a ese niño? What's wrong with that child? I'm serious.
Oh, I believe it.
And it's just a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. It's part of the culture. I would not be able to leave my house to go to practice. My coach would pick me up, and I would not be able to leave the house with to practice without, on a daily basis, because my mom and my dad were working. My grandmother would make me 2 toasts with butter, okay, white toast with butter, a big glass of orange juice with 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now that's a healthy diet.
Sugar.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a healthy diet, and bread.
I mean, orange juice is already delicious. You add sugar
Yeah.
to it, I'm gonna drink it all the time.
So it wasn't until later on in my life, and I've always been I'm a natural, nutritional stuff. I don't believe in pharmaceutical industry, and I think that's one of the root causes of our demise in this country. But that's another podcast. But it's what I learned, and I didn't learn it until later on. And even though, in particular, JC, because he was the oldest and because he was working out, and he was better at it. But when my kids sat down, to watch cartoons in the morning, I'd love the fact that I'd fill 2 bowls of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and give it to them. Mm-hmm. And I think back and I go, holy shit, think about that. But it was a lack of education.
Yeah.
It was a lack of knowledge, but it was a horrible influence.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you got to give yourself a little bit of grace. But I get.
Yeah, but it is. I mean,
Yeah.
if you reflect back, you think about it, you go, okay. I look at my grandson, and they give him fruits, and he's sitting there eating, berries or whatever,
Yeah.
but fruits. I'm going, that's the right. And it doesn't mean that you can't have, some chips every once in a while or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just, it consumed our life, and it was what we were, and it was what we, what we did on a daily basis, and I think it leads to, obviously, if you're going to do that when you're young, you're going to have to break that habit.
Yep.
Habits are difficult to break.
Yep.
So you know that because you're an instructor, and it's been a lifelong thing for me because it hasn't, and it didn't affect my parents because both my parents were thin. So not that they ate right. In my dad's case, my dad didn't eat any junk food or anything like that, but he ate right. But he was always thin. In my case, I have always dealt with battling that, always trying to be, fit and not gaining weight and the yo-yo, you go up and down.
I think too, one of the things, and you, Danny, and I, all 3 have this, and I've been battling this the last 3-4 years. We've been discussing this, is the emotional eating, and
of course,
all 3 of us eat out of emotion, good or bad. By the way,
Yes.
we've talked about it. I told him that one of our biggest things growing up was we had a good moment in our life, something went right, whatever. Oh, we're going to Applebee's, or we're going to Chili's, or we're going to Tony
Absolutely.
Roma's, or something like that. We associated all of our emotions to eating. So I think the last couple of years, well, we've been battling that for a while, but the last couple of years, I've definitely focused on that. But to your point, I think that's something that wasn't really that we didn't tackle growing up, and was done poorly. Was that?
And it's education.
It's 100%
It's education.
Yeah.
It's education. You got to educate yourself and learn and understand, what's good and what's bad. I think that's one of the biggest battles that people have, because it's, if you think about it, it's legal. You can find it everywhere you want. In my case, I was on the road, so if I left a customer and I just I closed a nice deal, shit, I'm going to celebrate. I'm gonna go, get myself something at Chili's or whatever, wherever it is.
Convenient.
Right. If I lost the business, what was me? I'm gonna go,
Drown your sorrows.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think to also, I mean, not to pull you out completely, but also in the era in which we grew up, the FDA was literally telling us that you should start every meal with bread.
Correct.
Pasta, bread. I mean, the food pyramid. It was poorly designed. It was wrong.
And we swore by that.
Because
in school, and I don't think you guys experienced that as much as we did. But in school, we had the food pyramid, but we also had the presidential award. So you had to do fitness award, whatever, which they've taken away. But it was a food pyramid, and you look at the food pyramid, and who put it out? The government. The government says everything's right. I mean, the government is always right, which we've learned. Obviously, it's not. But the food pyramid, and it's a crock of shit.
Yeah.
100%.
It really is. I mean, it's just based on something that is what they've deemed to be correct, and you guys are in fitness. It's definitely not like that.
No, at all. All right, I got one last one. This is a soft one, and then we can get into overrated, underrated.
Soft.
This is gonna be funny, and I know you're not gonna give me. Well, you'll give me an answer, but what's better, girl dad or boy dad? Because you're both.
That's usually my
When
question.
you say girl dad or boy dad, you mean
being a
being
father,
a father
of.
Being a father to Janessa or being a father to
Because I have,
because
I have a daughter,
Exactly.
and he has a son.
So
without a unequivocally, girl.
Yeah, you're gonna say that because she's probably watching this.
No, girl. Not because you love them anymore, because by no means you don't love them anymore. You love your 3 kids totally the same, and it's a difficult thing to say because how can you be close to one child? Like for example, I was the closest. JC was the closest to me because we were, because he was with me 24/7 because it was baseball. We were traveled everything. So he was the closest to me. But being a dad to a girl is you are that guy. You are that first love for her. You are that guy. You are that person who's the protector. And no offense to you or to Danny, and by no means, because we're obviously you and Danny are close to me, and you stay. I mean, we talk all the time, 2 or 3 times a day, whatever. And the reason why I say that, and I'm going to give you the example. If you ever have a daughter, you'll understand. When you have a daughter, you don't know your sister's got 3 daughters. Okay, you might have.
But I'm manifesting. It.
Oh, okay, perfect. If you can do that, then you're going to make a lot of money. So I would travel a lot, and to answer his question, spend 2 weeks at a time. Travel all the time. In the era where it wasn't, you can't FaceTime anybody. I didn't have a cell phone. I'd leave the country and I'd have to call the operator in the hotel and say I want to call to the United States. Sometimes I'd get it, sometimes I wouldn't. So I'd spend 2 or 3 days without talking to my family, whatever. There was never a time where I would get home that Janessa wouldn't be waiting for me, and always, these guys, hey Dad, how you doing? Keep on walking. The love was the same, but it was different. Yeah. It was different. It's different, and the proof is in not all of them, but the proof is in when your daughter might be super close to your wife. Do all the girly stuff and things like that. When they're either sick or in a time of need, or they'll go to you, and because you're this, what they view as the strong person and the protector. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big influence.
Big deal.
It's a big deal for how we view things, and you could probably ask the same question to your brother-in-law, Ruby.
Yeah.
His oldest daughter, my granddaughter Vienna, is like this with him.
Yeah.
And she spends all the time with my wife. I mean, with her mom and my daughter. And you think about that and you go, okay, you spend all the time with your mom, yet when Dad comes home, it's like, and she clings to him, and I asked her the other day, about that. And she said, "Oh, Roby, her eyes light up when Roby." It's the same thing.
That's crazy.
It's the same thing.
I see it the other way around here with Brayden.
It's the opposite sex.
Exactly. It's 100% the opposite. It's like today, literally, Marty had, because she leaves in the morning, and it's me and him, and there was a bin full of her clothes. And he goes, "Mama's here." Like that, dude. I was like, "Bro, you're with me, man. Screw that." Like, and he was just like, "Mama's here." Like crazy. Yeah.
Well, it's the opposite sex thing.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And I think taking it even further to the question, and it has, again, I preface this by saying, has nothing to do with love or anything like that, because, I mean, we watch sports together, we do everything together. More than what I do with Janessa, because she's got a different, her life is consumed by her daughters and all that. But to me, the biggest telling sign was when he got, and I'm an emotional person, so I'll cry for anything. But when he got married, it wasn't that big. It was a big deal. My son's getting married. This and that. But I was proud. I was proud who he got married to. I'm prouder today even more. I mean, in all aspects. But it was a proud moment. I was equally as proud with Janessa. But it was like, it tugged at my heart, because she no longer, and it's not true, but she no longer needs me as a man. She no longer needs me. She's got a man that's her. And when you look at that, you go, shit. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. And it's a hard one because your daughter's always dependent on you. She still depends on me in the sense that she calls me for questions or advice and things like that. And she has a husband. And one of my roles has always been making sure that I never ever overstep my boundaries with him, because I love him to death. But at the end of the day, it's her husband.
Yeah.
And I always keep that role of a parent.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, absolutely. Your daughter's gone, and she's got a man.
And that's why Peyton's not allowed to date till she's 30. Done. All right, let's get to some overrated, underrated. I'm done with all this sappy stuff.
I am too, man.
All right, you got it today?
Yeah. All right. So we do a segment, overrated, underrated, or rated exactly where it needs to be. Okay.
What do we put? Over or under? Is that what we put?
Or rated exactly. And I'm going to give you a topic, so everybody knows. I'm going to give you a topic. I'm going to give us a topic. We'll write it down, write your decision down, and we will show simultaneously at the same time
To the camera.
what your answer is. So today's topic is going to be college football. Overrated, underrated, or rated exactly where it needs to be.
Why are you guys writing so much?
I have a lot to say. This guy over here always has a lot to say.
Holy shit.
I don't know if you do that. You have a lot to say. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
I put slightly over.
Man,
We got a little bit of everything.
Man,
Why you like under?
I'm like under, yeah.
Oh, I got it. Okay, well, so here's what happens. We try to deem who has the hottest take, and I think that's because he feels the strongest about it.
I am the hottest.
And clearly you have a lot to say.
I am the hottest.
So
Are
let's-
you a football fan?
Yeah.
College football?
Yeah.
So it is a tough one to call it over, because I think college football is obviously one of the biggest things that we do in this country, and that we celebrate. So it's tough to call it over. But my take on this is there's a caveat here, because now players are getting paid, but there is such a different passion to watching college sports, especially college football, and the way that these guys go out for passion for their team, passion for their brotherhood, passion for making it. A lot of them don't know if they're going to make it. Like they're really going out there like going all out, that you don't get in professional sports. Although I love professional football and I love professional basketball, but there's a thing there. we were talking about the basketball Olympics the other day briefly.
Yeah.
And to me, I found such a I loved this year the basketball because they were really passionate about it.
They were representing their country.
They were representing the country. They were super passionate about it, and they don't even do that in the NBA. It seems. So I'm gonna say underrated because I just feel like it doesn't. To me, it's the best sport in the country, by far, is college football. The best sport in the country, the best presentation, the best hype. The fans are fucking amazing.
Guys
The
that
right-
watch March Madness would debate that, but
I disagree, man, because you get it for a longer period of time. Like the fandom, the fans for each sport, like FSU and UM rivalry, and there's rivalries like that across the country. Like I don't know, man. There's just something about it that I don't think it even get. I don't think, and it's crazy to sound. To say I don't think it gets the hype that it should. There's something special about college football. Just something special.
I disagree, and so for the reason that you put it under, like I 100% agree with all of that. That the buy-in, the school spirit, the brotherhood, blah blah blah, and then you introduce NILs, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now it's slightly overrated, right? Because now the people, now the kids who aren't going to make it are still going to make millions of dollars. Like they're still going to be able to take care of their family. They're still going to come up and be successful in the realm in which they've been arguing to be successful for years, right? It's one of the reasons the college football video game went away. Is kids weren't getting paid for it. It was wrong to use their likeness and not let them get paid. Now they're getting paid. The only reason I put it slightly overrated and not exactly where it needs to be is because there are bigger fish to fry in this country. There are bigger things that need more attention than college football.
Yeah.
And so it's great. I'm glad that it's awesome. I'm glad that people are passionate about it. I'm glad that people have a team and they can cheer for the people. And I'm super stoked that athletes are getting paid what they're worth, right? What I'm missing out on is like when college football becomes the end-all be-all. Like College Game Day went to Ireland this past weekend for the FSU Georgia Tech game. One, there had to have been a better matchup that they could have put there, and I'm an FSU fan. Like, great, yeah, we lost. Let's talk about that another day. But also, like, to go all the way to Ireland for week 0, like,
yeah, I didn't understand that.
I didn't understand that. But so like, I'm just like a little bit overrated. I'm probably closer to exactly where it needs to be. But it's like there are bigger things going on, and the kids are going for school. Like there's so many athletes that aren't going to make it to the next level that are trying to get to the next level, and they're putting their priorities that they're kind of like displaced. It almost feels like it's that's where I get distracted, I guess.
I agree with you. I said exactly only because I would have probably said underrated a couple of years ago because I've seen college football, for many years, and I still think that they have a ton of passion. And by far, I mean, I'm a huge Dolphin fan. Watch the NFL. I'm such a junkie. I watch preseason, which is stupid, but I think college football players absolutely play with passion. I think where I would have said underrated was because in the past I believed in the college football system. The NIL has spoiled a lot of it.
And the transfer portal. I didn't even touch on the transfer portal.
Oh,
so
no,
the allegiance it
right.
feels less.
Well,
serious
there's
now.
no commitment on, and you know what? It was also there's no commitment on the player, but I also look at the player before there was no commitment from the school either. Because if all of a sudden you didn't want that player, you could drop the scholarship or you could do certain things. My biggest gripe, and I've been saying this for the last 20 years, where you look at the universities, and if you Google this, you'd be blown away by how much money universities, whether it's Texas, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, all the schools, how much money they make off of football. They subsidize the rest of the sports program for it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've made out like bandits, which is great. Free society, that's great. The problem is that a lot of the players haven't gotten their fair share. I don't believe that NIL is the way to go about it because, like you said, there's some players that are making money. There's players that haven't even played a down in college football and they're making millions. That is unheard of, and it's insane. I think they need to find a solution for it, and in some other way other than the NIL, where people get compensated and everybody gets a share. And I say this because I remember the one guy that always stands out to me is Melvin Bratton. Melvin Bratton was a UM guy. I remember him in high school and came out. Forget about Frank Gore. Forget about any of the UM running backs. This guy was it. He went to UM for 2 years, and I think in his third year he stayed instead of going to the NFL. He could have gone to the NFL. Well, he got a devastating knee injury. Never played in the NFL. So how do you compensate a player like that? You understand?
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
But the flip side is, I don't want to compensate a player who never played down and he's making millions. So, passion is great.
Yeah.
All of it is great. And I love to see more than, aside from the players, I love to see the fans, how passionate they are. And we've got the college football games, and it's great on both sides.
Yeah. I'll never forget the feeling of being in the student section for the first time. Like at FSU, it was an FSU Miami game. It was a night game. There was 2 or 3 missed field goals as FSU Miami does, and it was wild.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, it is. It's passionate. I mean, they play for their
Everyone.
school. So
I'm sure you did.
No, we did. I'll look it up. Don't you worry. All right, gang.
Well,
I think that wraps it up. Thanks for joining us for this episode. If you stuck around this long, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff on the YouTube. If you're on podcast, please go rate the show. Go give us 5 stars. Write something nice about us. Tell JC he has a nice silky voice or something. I don't know. And we'll see you in the next one.
thank you.